And the bottom line is the Rockaways are pretty far away from Lower Manhattan. We don't have East Side access. We don't have a train to the plane. Those things would help. But those are longer term projects, and we want to see if we can't do something shorter term.
Do you have any way of gauging the interest of private ferry operators in this? Number one.
We're going to find out. We're going to put out the request tomorrow, and we'll let you know.
Do you know, you talked about the idea of permit parking in residential neighborhoods near the...
Well, you'd have to address all of those things. You don't want to have a boat land someplace where you're going to destroy the neighborhood because nobody will be able to move. Everybody be double parking all day. Obviously, that's part of the solution to the problem. We've got to make sure that people do have a place to leave their cars, because it makes sense. An awful lot of people would drive to where the ferry picks them up. The ferry can't pick them up, obviously, all along the beach. And so we'll have to worry about that, yes.
Is the idea to pilot it during rush hour with an eye towards expanding it?
Well, you'd pilot it for a period of time. Clearly, at rush hour is the only time you're going to have any traffic. I mean, most people, it's like a restaurant. They're busy at meal times. Okay, that's what you're going to do.
But the idea would be to expand it beyond that
The idea would be to expand it perhaps to other places. The first question is, does it work? Here, Rockaway is a classic example. It is a community where a certain percentage of the people have a very difficult commute. And you would think that they would be receptive to saving an hour a day. But we're going to find out. Yes, sir.
What is the range of the prices on the different private areas?
Do you have any idea?
It's all over the. It's everything from maybe $4 to I think the Highland service is about $26 a day actually.
Round trip?
From the Highlands, it's round trip, about $26 a day.
Yes. Staten Island Ferry is free. It is.
Great, thanks.
It is. That's exactly correct.
Well,
Yes,
part
ma'am.
of this RFEI includes something you had mentioned.
I couldn't hear. I'm sorry.
Well, part of this RFEI includes something that's in Plan YC, which is trying to make the ferries accessible by MetroCard. Is there any attempt to look at
Yeah,
this?
I mean, we'll look at all of those things. Not to have MetroCard technology used every place in this day. You can certainly allocate revenues, but to have one collection mechanism would make an awful lot of sense, and we certainly would like to go in that direction. Yes, Miss.
There have also been some complaints that there aren't enough express trains here to get between the city fast enough. Are you thinking about expanding that?
We would like to, but that's an MTA issue, and the MTA is struggling with their own issues. But look, I take the subway virtually every day, and I've always found it to be a great ways to travel. It's fast, it's economical. If you take, well, it's a long ways out. Yeah, I know that. But at least you can get a seat, probably. Yes. Okay.
Ma'am.
The mayor of Bloomberg, I'm
Yes.
Mary Deb Kelly, community activist for many years. On behalf of the Rockaway Park Home Residents Association, I thank you for whatever you can do to improve the quality of life in the Rockaways. The Rockaways are a hidden jewel in New York City, and we need to get better transportation.
Yes.
So thank you again.
Yeah, I think that the biggest problem for Rockaway is the transportation, and the challenge is that it's just just look at a map and you see the challenge. New York City is an enormous geographical area, not to mention very diverse and lots of people and that sort of thing. And the Rockaways is probably as big a challenge as you can have in terms of distance that you need to get to downtown Manhattan. That's the bad news. The good news is that Rockaway does have the advantage of being on the water. And the question is, does that make up for it? Does that give you another opportunity where you might not be able to otherwise? Yes,
Mayor,
Miss.
on another topic, if
Sure.
I may, can you respond to the report in the Post today that you've had conversations with Republicans statewide about running for governor? Are you interested?
I have absolutely no way those categorically. I've never had a conversation about it. I think the closest I'd ever come was maybe 2 years ago when they were looking for candidates. Somebody said, "Would you run?" And I said, "No, thank you. I have no interest whatsoever." I did talk to Governor Spitzer. I think is doing a great job this morning. He did remind me of just how cold it is in Oswego County in the middle of the winter. And I love Oswego County, and I'd love to visit, but I have a job in the city and have no interest, and I've never had a discussion about running for governor. I think the governor's doing a great job. And bottom line is, nobody's even asked me, but he is doing a great job. It was a story that we never even got a call on. I think they didn't want a denial because they knew exactly what would ruin their story. It was a totally made-up story. Not a bad picture they used. I was happy with that. Other subjects? Anybody else? Yes, sir. Yeah, I did promise you one. So apologize.
A few weeks of beach will open.
Yep.
Memorial Day weekend. Lifeguards will be here. The beach will open and water will be 50 degrees. Come Labor Day, water will be 70 degrees. The lifeguards leave. We go in the water. It's going to be some sun. In addition to which, the beaches go to 6 o'clock at night. Every night it's going to July and with the crowds. It makes no sense.
You know,
Park's issue, but it's important.
I will talk to him. I think it may be just an economic issue, but I've always thought the nicest time of the year on the beach is before Memorial Day and after Labor Day, when the crowds aren't there and you can get into the restaurants. Yeah, no, I understand that. You're absolutely right. I'll take a look at that. Yes, miss.
Many of our people who live in Rockaway, they travel back and forth. By the time they return to their homes, it's after 6 p.m. and they can't go in the water if they do their summits. So we need staggered hours as other places.
Yeah, no, I think that is right. What we don't want anybody to do is please don't go in the water if there's no life. If we can't even solve the problem, there's no economics that are as important as saving lives. And yes, miss.
Last question.
What is the city going to do about the hiring of city employees that drive into Manhattan to work and clog up the streets?
Why don't you try to interview them and ask them how they feel? They're the ones that are your readers.
Well, is the city going to address the free parking issue?
I think it is true that the use of placards has gotten out of hand and that we should certainly do something about that. A municipal worker shouldn't be treated any differently than somebody working in the private sector. And we should have people park legally and not abuse the privilege. There are cases where it does make sense to have a placard, somebody that on their job shows up and has to, with an emergency, go inside and do something. But municipal workers that are called to do the normal things are no different than people in the private sector who have to make a delivery. So we'll give the last question to the dean of the press corps here. Who can't seem to get up off the floor. Is that right? Why are you sitting on the floor?
It's the beach.
Yesterday, the police commissioner said that they don't think they're going to make their goal regarding recruiting for the next academy class. And he pointed to the low starting pay. Is there anything the city can do? Or?
We tried to get this we wanted to negotiate. The police department in 5 or 6 years now has never negotiated. The PBA has never negotiated face-to-face. They want to go to arbitration, they say. We've tried to force it to arbitration as expeditiously as possible. The city is getting hurt by their refusal to talk. And I think you should better address the question. If, God forbid, there's a tragedy because we couldn't fill the ranks, don't make any mistake about what's happening here. We have offered a lot more money to the police officers to rectify a terrible decision that an arbitrator made a few years ago. The PBA won't even talk about it. We've tried to get this to arbitration. They fought us in court trying to delay. And the city is getting hurt. The commissioner couldn't be more right. Having said that, I will say that the fact of the matter is the monies that should be going to pay rookie cops are going to pay those that have more time on the job. So it's still a great job. It's the greatest police department in the world. I think someday this will be rectified, hopefully earlier rather than later. And the monies are, those who are in the more senior positions are getting better compensated because the monies aren't going to the police officers who are just joining. But we do need to rectify that and continue to recruit. So
there's no unilateral action the city can take to change it?
Basically, the laws on labor contracts are federal laws and state laws and some city laws that are pretty explicit. You have to either talk to each other or you have to go to arbitration. And both sides have access to the courts, but fundamentally that's the answer to your question. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.